they're simple things and they work. And anybody can do them. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be an electrician. When she did this, not only did her trees not freeze, but she got incredibly bigger yields. So the plants repaired themselves in these conditions. Once you build it, there is no cost to run it. So it runs indefinitely, free. George Van Tassel. Hey everybody. Hello. Tonight's going to be a quick video. Thank you. I think it was Rochelle who listened to Secret of Light and suggested that I take a look at that book, When Stars Look Down by George Van Tassel, because she wanted me to read it for you. Fascinating book. I'm afraid that the copyright is still in effect, so I'm not able to read it verbatim. But I have started reading it myself, and it is easy to understand for a layman. You don't have to be scientifically inclined. I do see things artistically, and they're drawings, and so some of them are interesting. I'm going to talk about them tonight. So George Van Tassel, for those of you who are familiar, he said he was contacted by an alien ship, and one of the aliens in particular kept up communication with him, and because of it, he built the Integratron. I think that's how you say it. And he found a perfect spot to build it. It is over, I think the word that was used was an aquifer in the middle of the desert. So that is fascinating. And it's also a spot where energy lines all converge, a lot of them, in this one centered location. He said that he got the idea and the direction on how to build this. I don't think he took full credit for all of the design, because there were other men and perhaps women, I don't know, but other people involved in the project that volunteered their time to get it built. But it is a dome out in the middle of the desert. I think it's called Giant Rock, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to look that up. And I'm sure it's flashing now. Anyway, he had an airstrip out there, and then not far from there, he built this building. And he was very specific about the way it was built. And there are some videos out there about it, so you can check those out. It is a perfect acoustical chamber, and there have been a lot of things that have been filmed out there. Some bands have used them. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the ways. And the people that own it now allow people to come in and take what they call sound baths, where they use the drums, like the singing drums, and it becomes an experience in there. So tours are allowed to go through there. But he said it was a time machine, and that it was a way to extend people's lives. He likened it to, we are batteries that need to be recharged, and if we were properly recharged, like in this machine, that we could extend our lives doubly, fully doubly. He was talking about 150 years old. He said that the being that contacted him looked just like anyone walking, a man walking down the street with a little bit of a tan. Totally normal, you would walk right past him. He said they've been here a long time, and that they do reach out when they need to get things done, I guess, or advance things. So he was contacted, and he continued to be contacted by this one man, and they had a conversation, and I guess George was not afraid, because apparently whatever this apparatus is where they can reach out and call your name, your first name, in the middle of nowhere, you can actually talk back to them. And that's what he did. And he said that the beam was that whatever this technology was that allowed this communication where they could see you and hear you was very strong on the human body. And so he had to build up to where he could eventually talk for 45 minutes at a time, but otherwise he initially was limited to a minute at a time. He wrote several books, and like I said, I don't know what you think about him, but he worked for Lockheed. He held a high position at Lockheed when he left, and he also held a very high position working with Howard Hughes. He was in the aviation business. And then he also had his airport. And there's some interesting things on YouTube that I checked out. There is a speech that he gives, and there is an interview that I found, and then I found some information about the Integratron. I don't know if I found that on Wiki or not, maybe. I wanted to hear it. I heard just little snippets of it, but I need to go back and see what bands recorded there. And see, I just want to see how it sounds. I'm really into music. That interests me. So, this book, the main reason I'm doing this video, I want you to check out When Stars Look Down. It's on Project Avalon right now, but it's not public domain. I can read little bits about it and I can tell you about it. If you're into gardening or farming, there's a couple of interesting free energy devices. The diagrams are in there, and to take a look at it on my blog, there's a link below. Owl Baby Press. It'll be my first blog entry. I just opened it up, so check it out. I'll put 2 PDFs of those diagrams that I saw because I want to try them. I think both of these allowed up to an acre of growing space. So what I was curious about is, could you cut it down and it still be as effective? So I don't know about that. But he has a diagram for, it's an acre property, and it shows how basically he uses poles and copper wiring and some insulating things, concrete, simple things. And one of them is supposed to greatly increase yields, like by 30%. And the other thing is a 32-foot pole, again with wires going out into the ground, and there's certain configurations for each of them. It allows trees that are in frost conditions not to freeze. And this is the part that I have to let sink in a little bit more, because I didn't really pay attention in science when I was in school. But it basically, if the fruit is on the tree, it's fine. It's part of the living thing and it's fine. If it falls to the ground, then it's not. It would freeze inside the radius of this apparatus. Once you build it, there is no cost to run it. So it runs indefinitely, free. And it talked about, and this was not his invention, but he mentions it in the book, just the section. I think it's page 30 and 42, I think. Project Avalon site. One was a woman who bought an orchard. She didn't realize it was past its prime. There was a special term they used. She didn't realize that. So she puts this apparatus in because the other method was keeping smudge lamps going to keep them from freezing. When she did this, not only did her trees not freeze, but she got incredibly bigger yields. So the plants repaired themselves in these conditions. And when she saw that, I think she started with 5 acres. And then when she saw how well they did, she put it in the rest of her farm. They had to bring in props for the tree limbs because they got so big and so full of fruit. So they're simple things and they work. And anybody can do them. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be an electrician. There's no power. It's using the properties of the earth. It's using the positive and negative influences that are already present, working with them, as in nature. He talks about that a lot. He talks a lot about Tesla, that's what Tesla did, that he followed nature. And that was the key to free energy. And that was the key to free energy. Check out that book. I'll probably pop back in with more information about it as I read through it. But it's fascinating. It is free to find on the website and easy to understand. George Van Tassel. Interesting guy. Check him out. Thanks so much for watching. Take care until next time. He followed nature, and that was the key to free energy.